Alright, so I had a couple questions regarding lookup tables and the Pmt function. So I'm going to try and just use a quick little example here, maybe answer it with just a video tutorial instead of an email message. So what I have going here, I have an example that I'll craft out where I have what I'm calling the professor's gradebook. And so I got 4 students here, and I have 4 grades. And what I want to do is convert those grades from a numeric standpoint, a percentage standpoint, to an actual letter grade. Okay, so I have my grading scale down here on the bottom, and here's my grades. So what I'd like to do, I'll put over here a little header here. Here's my letter grade, and I want to calculate those using a lookup function. All right. So do so. Let's start with equals, and I'm going to use this is a vertical table here, vertical going up and down. I'm going to use the lookup function. It's equals v lookup, and I'll put my parentheses in there. And note that when I do that, it gives me lots of help here. Okay, so it tells me both my required parameters for this function and then those that are optional. Anytime you see something in brackets like this, like range lookup, that's optional. But for the VLOOKUP function, there are 3 required fields. Okay, 1 is the lookup value, 2 is going to be a table array, and 3 is going to be the column index. Okay, so my lookup value is going to be just adjacent here, so it's going to be this value right here. Alright, so there's my lookup value, and I put a comma in. My table array, where my grades are, now note the way that I have this listed out here too. I go from smallest to highest, and then I have the equivalent grade. So the way to read this here is 70 or above is going to be a C until it hits 80, and then 80 above is a B, and then 90 above is an A. Okay? It's not a complete lookup table, but it's enough to give us an example here. So I'm going to select that entire range of cells. So I got from B10 through C12. And then the last thing I need here is I need an index, okay? And the index is going to be where in this table does the value I want to place in there, okay? So if you think of this table, I got 2 columns here, and over here in the second column is where the letter is that I want to display. So I'm going to put a 2 in. Alright, so I finish that off, I hit enter. And Jane should have an 89. That should give her a letter grade of a B, and it does. So my lookup table seems to work here, and then I should be able to just use my fill handle and click on down here. Okay, well, didn't quite work. Alright, let's go back and look at why. And it's our lookup table's fine here. I'm going to hit F2. One of the things that I have here is I have a mix of, well, I'm going to need to use some absolute values. I have a relative value here, B3 is a relative value, but over here B10 and C12, I don't want that to change, so I need to make those absolute. Alright, so I'm going to go back over here, and if I select that area, then I hit F4, that makes that an absolute value. I'll go over here, hit F4, and that makes that an absolute value. Okay? So nothing changes in cell C3, but when I pull this down here now, using my fill handle, see all my letter grades are correct now. Okay? And if I look at the formula again here, I have kind of a mixed bag of both relative references and absolute references. Alright? So review that and look through the syntax of VLOOKUP. They're handy items to use anytime you have any sort of table. The other one the other function I want to show you here is the Pmt function. And so the Pmt function allows us to calculate the monthly payment or periodic payment anytime we borrow money. Okay, so in my example I'm going to use here, I'm going to look at what my monthly payment would be if I borrowed $200,000. Anytime we borrow money, we get an annual interest rate, and then we also get a term, or how many years are we going to pay that back in. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do here is calculate the monthly payment. If a person borrows $200,000 at 4% interest, which is pretty accurate right now, I think we're a little over 4%, but we're pretty close to that, for 30 years. Okay, so this is the start of maybe doing a little home shopping. Okay, or for that matter, it could be a car or a student loan or anything that's applicable to us. I think we're all impacted by financial situations involving loans and repayment. Okay, so let me look at my monthly payment here. Again, I start with equals. I use Pmt function. Okay, and now watch, as soon as I put that parentheses up here, I'm going to get a little information box. It's going to ask me for what the rate is. It's going to ask me for the period, and it's going to ask for the principal value. Okay, rate's going to be my monthly interest rate. The period's going to be how long I'm borrowing that for in months. Remember, we're calculating monthly payment. That's why I put months on both of those. And then the PV is the principal value, or the amount that we borrow. All right, so let's do a formula here. So we're going to take my rate, which is found up here in cell B3. Okay, but recognize that is a yearly rate for interest, and most interest rates are calculated yearly, and we're doing monthly payments. Okay, so to convert from a yearly to a monthly, we need to divide by 12. Make sense? Okay, yearly interest rate, monthly payments, okay, divide by 12. Next, our term, which is found here in cell B4, okay, it says 30 years. All right, we take our 30 years and we're going to multiply that by months, okay, because 30 years would be 360 months, okay, so I take 360, or I take 30 and multiply it by 12, all right, and that'll give me my monthly term, okay. Lastly, my formula here, I got to take my principal, which is $200,000 and found in cell B2, and put that as my last parameter. All right, close off my formula there, and you'll see I get what looks to be about, you know, a correct value. If I was going to estimate what my monthly payment would be on a $200,000 loan, that seems pretty reasonable. The one thing I do see here that I'm not real happy with is it shows it as a negative value. Okay, so anytime we're borrowing money, it'll show up as a negative value unless I go in here. Okay, and I'm going to take the B. I'm just going to rewrite my formula here, and I'm going to take my principal value, instead of having it be a positive number, I'm just going to flip it to a negative number. All right. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'm going to hit enter here. All right, and there's my monthly payment. It's $954. Okay, so let's just play with some things here. Let's see what happens if I have a interest rate instead of 4%. Let's say it's 5%. Okay, see my monthly payment went up by almost $100. Okay, or let's move this to maybe more of a new car. Suppose I buy a new car and it's $10,000. Whoops. And let's say I'm getting 7% interest. And then my term on it, usually car loans are closer to 5 years. Okay, so there's my monthly payment for that particular car.